we're going to get started. And so tonight what we're going to do is I'm going to unmute anyone who wants to be unmuted in the next couple minutes. We're just going to go around and have a little bit of a mindset from each of our presenters who are on tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, making sure that we're caring for those in need, do a little bit of gratitude, talk about what are the particular hardships, especially as they relate to real estate. Lana's been posting some great stuff, video clips about what's going on with the Bank of Canada and phone numbers to get in touch with your banks. And of course, the government announced a $26 billion bailout package this morning, which is half of what the US did, which, considering our population, that's pretty incredible. So I think we can feel pretty grateful that the government's stepping up and really trying to work through this. And I did a loan application this morning because, of course, you know, my business is mostly event-based, so things are going to shift a little bit for me. And it took me 10 minutes, apart from the little bit of password. I'm looking at my friends here, my little bit of password problems that I had, but it didn't take long at all. It was actually pretty easy. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll keep you posted, and we'll try to keep posting things on a regular basis. So Darlene, I'm going to start with you because you posted the videos this morning and the last couple days, and apparently you're going to do those for 19 days to keep us chipper. So yesterday was your green theme in honor of St. Paddy's Day, and today you were in Mickey Mouse theme. So give us a couple of your tips and tell us a little bit about what's going on in the market over there, and are there opportunities we should jump on, or should we just wait and see?
Well, thanks, Liza, and thank you for having me again. And hey, welcome everybody. Yeah, so I kind of, you know, leaders have to step up during this time. And what can I do, right? I've had so many of, you know, speeches canceled, and I thought, well, why not start some videos? So just to give you a little bit of history, I decided, and since it's called 19, this virus, we're going to call it a help storm. I'm not sure yet why they call it 19, so I decided for 19 days, I'm going to do live videos. And today, of course, we talk about mindset. And, you know, there's so much negativity going out there. There's a roller coaster that's going to be happening. And we really have to watch what we are going to feed our minds. Because if you watch the news and if you read some things, and we all have those people, that the world is ending and everything, and it's just going to make things worse. Yes, there's going to be anxiety, worries, but, you know, we have to start looking after ourselves and, you know, stay informed. Stay informed, no question, but don't watch the news all day, as it's not. I have some family members, I'm sure that that's all they're doing, because my phone is just blowing up with, now this is cold and closed and this here. And yes, but, you know, take some of that stress off of yourself. This is really where we're going to have to look at is you're going to have to, particularly being at home, and tomorrow, join me, I'll be talking a lot about structure, and because you just can't, you know, go how long with not having any structure in your household. Yes, you have to do what you need to do in your household for your family. I'm on the East Coast. Fortunately, we only have, as of today, 11 cases. So, you know, we've been pretty fortunate. Pretty well everything is closed. A lot of essential services, you know, it was nice to see the garbage guy picking up. I hurt my shoulder. The chiropractor was. You can't do that virtually, you know, but they're all taking, yeah, take my arm and twist it. They're all taking precautions. I love the fact that for seniors, they're opening an hour early from 7 to 8.
Thank God. Yeah.
And, you know, this is where communities got to go together, because we've got some people living by themselves. I had a lot of friends traveling, and thank goodness that they're all back safe. You know, some people went out and got them food and things and stuff like that. You know, it's one of these things that we're just going to go day by day right now. We will get through it, but, you know, they're doing a lot of takeouts here in our city, but the takeouts, you can't use cash, right? They don't want you to.
Oh, right. They don't want anybody handling cash.
You don't want to touch it.
Yeah, of
Don't
course.
want to
Of
touch
course.
it. Some of
Yeah.
our financial institutions have started cutting back on some of their hours that they're going to be open for. You still see a lot of people around shopping. You know, they're limiting it as well. But we're in the few days. As we go, the mindset's going to be even worse because people are going to get worse because they're going to be big. So I myself, you know, I've always been knock on wood healthy. I don't do any more than I have to, but I need to make a few stops, and we'll do that to make sure everything. So the sad part is that, you know, buy local, support, because some of the mama and papas, man, it's going to be tough to bring those back, right? So we'll see where this all goes. We just had everybody, if you're looking on the screen, we're excited because Tammy has. Oh God!
Yes,
That's why I was like, oh.
I know, we were all just like, Tammy's not a ghost. For those of you who've done webinars with us before, Tammy's got this new computer and we haven't been able to figure out her webcam. And she's here.
16 by 9 instead of 4:3. It was 16 by 9.
Oh, look at that. See, there you go. That's awesome. I was looking at Cheri going, what? And
I
was
know.
like, oh, there's Tammy.
What is she doing? That's right.
Oh,
You know,
fun. Cool. Oh, and
and
everybody just froze. Is that me or what just happened?
No, I
just
think it's
you.
all right. Yeah, it's just you. One last thing I want to add to that. Hey, you know, we need to use our listening skills. Some people out there are going to need to blow off some steam. Sometimes we just need to listen. So be there for your family, your friends. You know, I've heard from people that I haven't heard from in a while. People need the connection, right? We are distant socially, right? I stayed 6 feet from when I had to pick up something in a store today, but that's okay. It was kind of funny because this lady said for her husband, he's been socially distancing forever. So for him, there's no change. And he's like, yeah, that's right. So, you know, we can find some humor somewhere in this because there's some tough days coming ahead.
Yeah, I think finding the humor, and I like the structure and the routine tips, Dar. I think that's really good. Like, I've been starting my day every day with a walk. We've got great weather right here. We don't have snow here on the West Coast, like I saw the Vicky video that you did this morning, and looks like you're standing in some snow there. But yeah, getting out in the morning before there's lots of people around and going out and being in nature, and yeah, it's been great to be able to do that. And yeah, that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. And you know what? I'm really tempted that now that we've got Tammy, that we can see her for the first time, I'm tempted to let Tammy go next. And so Tammy, we're just sharing, you know, some of our mindset tips, talking about, are there any particular things in terms of real estate that we should be running towards, running away from, or just sort of holding still? Have you seen or heard anything? And yeah, why don't you take it away?
So much going on. Uncertainty creates indecision. Generally, people just, especially this is unprecedented. Well, I said to my financial advisor, I said, oh, these are unprecedented times. She goes, not really. You know, we've gone through things like this before where it's been uncertain whether it was SARS or this and that. I said, well, businesses are shutting down now, which we haven't really gone through this before. So, you know, where open houses are virtually shutting down. Some realtors are still having open houses. They haven't forbidden us to host them. I have a listing, and I just said to my client, by appointment only is fair. They're having strangers walk through their house, touching all of their things. As some people think that they can lowball, I have a client whose deal just collapsed on their house in Squamish. It was listed, they had an accepted offer for 1,795. They collapsed the deal on purpose and then came back and offered them 250,000 less, thinking that they would take it. And they just said, no, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. We're not there yet. Okay. So, you know, buyers are thinking, oh, there's going to be deals and everyone needs to panic sell. And no, we're not there. So I haven't seen prices adjust. In fact, I just, as of a week ago, helped first-time home buyers close on a deal. So the market, oh gosh, up to about a week ago, the market was really sizzling and multiple offers on so many things. And then, now a week later, things seem to have, of course, calmed due to just, I think we all revert back to survival. We feel like we're in survival mode a little bit. So business, I've had 2 clients call me this week saying that their significant others lost their jobs. One was in oil and gas. He got laid off, and the other's in the travel industry. She was a senior VP for cruises. So lots of uncertainty. So I've had people pull out of certain deals, things like that. They're not sure of their cash position. So despite the fact that interest rates have dropped, we saw that. So the Feds, it didn't translate necessarily right through to bank rates dropping, though, a full point. See, when the Fed drops their rate, the banks then have to decide if they're going to pass that on to the retail users. Sorry, Lana, I'm probably stealing your thunder here.
That's okay.
Mortgages, but anyway, with respect to real estate and how that affects, we thought, oh, this would be great. Everyone's going to run out and buy, but the off balance of the economy and people's jobs being at risk, I think, is outweighing some of the benefits of the lower mortgage rates. So right now, it just seems to be a bit in limbo. If you are pre-approved, I do have one active client who's still looking and thinking that there may be a deal. So there are still people who are just business as usual. Of course, US dollar highs. So anybody who invested in the US and US funds, they made 10% just on the exchange rate. So that's interesting as well. So many things happening all at once. Oil going down. So if you had thought about maybe buying in Alberta, now it looks like they were just, I think, feeling like they were coming out of a tough spot. And this maybe has set them back quite substantially for the next, I don't know, foreseeable future. So lots of speculation. All we know is we have the numbers for February. They were great. Single detached homes sales were up 55% year over year in February. Overall, sales were up 45%. And this is consistent. That had been going on since August of last year. So the trajectory was really strong with respect to sales and price. A lot of the price losses were slowly shrinking again. But now we'll see. There is a big shortage of supply. So that had been keeping prices escalated or propped up. That may become even more pronounced if some sellers decide not to go forward with selling their home. Again, during uncertainty, you may just decide, I'm going to stay where I am if I don't have to move. So the supply side, we may come out of this relatively unscathed if the supply side stays. It's all about supply and demand, right? Demand was there. Mortgage rates are supporting that. I'll let Lana talk about the changes on the mortgage side, but from the supply side, if that stays constrained, when everything gets back to normal, the market may still just bounce back relatively quickly as it has in the past. Now, what's quickly? We have yet. 2008, which was different. By 2010, we were rocking and rolling again. This time, they're talking the R word, recession. We may head straight into a recession, which will change things as well. People's disposable income, jobs, things like that, and qualification for mortgage. So interesting times. Stock markets tumble. When stocks tumble, people tend to fly to what they consider stable investments, such as real estate. So I just read an article today. Goodman is a commercial real estate group, and they were quoted today. I think it was Western Investor or something, that as soon as the rates dropped 1%, all of the multifamily, new multifamily, not old multifamily properties that they had listed, they were getting multiple offers instantly in
Wow.
Vancouver. So for people who own apartment buildings, all right, all of a sudden the REITs and everybody were going crazy with that drop of the 1%. So the flight to safety, those were the words I was looking for earlier. Flight to secure or safety when stock markets tumble does tend to drive investment. It doesn't drive necessarily primary, occupants, but investors to real estate. So many things. So we've got oil, we've got rates going down, we've got stock market tumbling, we've got a virus, people losing jobs. It's hard to know which is going to have the most impact and what it's going to look like on the other side. So what were my other? So things we're looking up. I think that we'll be okay, right? We got to get through this. We'll take all of Darlene's awesome tips on how to just breathe and go for a walk in nature and all of those things. Yeah. Yeah. You've had a kid, practice your whatever your deep breathing. And we'll see. I mean, it'll be week by week. It should be interesting to see what the numbers look like for March. So I will close with a quote, a Warren Buffett quote, which is, "We attempt to be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." So
Yes,
trying to go a little bit against the grain, right? When is the bottom? When is the time to act? So right now everyone's fearful. So is this the time to pounce?
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing some greediness. I mean, people are getting
not that
shamed
kind of
all
greed.
over. Well, but people are shamed all over social media for some of the greed. So
not that kind of greedy. I meant with respect to investing and taking action.
There's the attitude. I think proactive when it comes to real estate. And yes, there's some interesting greed that we're really seeing. So we're going to be careful.
I'm not condoning buying all the hand sanitizer and reselling it for $20 a bottle. That's not what I'm saying.
The entire meat.
The entire meat section. No.
Of the entire grocery store. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Lana, because I know, Lana, you've got some good stats. So it'd be great to hear a little bit about those. And then I think what we'll do after that is we'll take some questions and see if anybody's got some questions, and then we'll hear from Cheri and Alice. Take it away,
Sure.
Lana. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you as well for having me on. It is very interesting times right now. The Bank of Canada did drop its interest rates on March the 4th by 0.50, and that did translate to all of the lenders that we work with. And at that point in time, nothing changed in regard to discounts to variable rate mortgages. And just because there's a discount in prime doesn't necessarily mean that it affects any of the other fixed interest rates. Although fixed interest rates did drop significantly between the 4th and Friday. So we were seeing institutions drop their 5-year fixed rate by 0.4%, which is significant overnight. Then last Friday, we were advised that the Bank of Canada had a meeting on Friday, and that as of Monday, they were dropping prime by another 0.50%.
Wow.
Again, as Tammy was saying, just because the Bank of Canada drops its rates doesn't mean that all of the lenders will follow suit. Now, in this particular case, again, the lenders did follow suit and they did drop prime by 0.50. But what they also did was increase their variable rates. So prime, we could get, or sorry, variables we could get at prime -1, prime -0.75. Then on Friday, we heard that prime for a lot of our lenders was going, or sorry, not prime, but the variable was going to prime -0.75. And then on, sorry, is somebody's chatting.
Oh, you can hear something in the background?
Yeah. Then we were advised that prime, the discount was increasing. So it was prime minus 0.75. Then on Monday, we got a whole bunch of rate holds in for clients at prime minus 0.75. On Monday, we were advised that rates were changing to prime minus 0.5. And today we've been advised that as of tomorrow, it'll be prime minus 0.25. Now, that's a good discount currently. Some of the financial institutions for their variables are going to prime plus already. So that's crazy for a variable. And we are inundated daily with rate changes, period. It's crazy. And they are all going up right now. So they went down by about 0.3 or 0.4 within the last month, and now they're up to where they were before they started discounting. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Bank of Canada or the Government of Canada has something to say about the financial institutions doing this, because it's counterintuitive to what they're trying to do. So we've had a lot of calls.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I mean, with places like the Royal Bank has suspended their mortgage payments for 6 months. They've offered a 6-month suspension. That's what we heard just a little while ago. But apparently Scotiabank hadn't really offered it, and a few other banks hadn't. So yeah, it's really interesting to know what to do.
That was in the email that I sent out. All of the big 6 banks and the majority of the credit unions have agreed to 6 months, but it's on a case-by-case basis. So if somebody has not lost their job, they're not going to be able to not make their mortgage payments. You know, I had a client call me today. She had a property that she turned into a rental property, and she purchased a principal residence. She's in the pharmaceutical industry, so she has no problem with her job, but she thinks her tenant is having a hard time. So she would ask on her rental property that the rental payments be waived, possibly for up to 6 months. Now, in those particular cases, what happens is they don't waive them. They say you don't have to make them, and they just add that interest to the other side of your mortgage. So then, in fact, when you start making your mortgage payments again, it's called capitalization, and it increases your mortgage payments a little bit. But I mean, it's fabulous in situations like this. We have seen that before in situations where industries are on strike and they're helping those clients. But we haven't seen it like this before, of course.
So people
Lana,
have to understand. Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
I was just gonna ask, Lana, can you ask the banks to re-amortize the mortgage and push it back out? Say if you were at 22 years left, you could push it back out to 30? You think they'll be allowing that?
Said that yet. And one of the other things I was wondering about too is, in this particular circumstance, would they think about increasing amortization for clients like past the 30 years?
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, it's honestly kind of a fly by the seat of your pants thing for a lot of these institutions, and whatever one comes up with, the majority tend to follow, because nobody wants to be left out and be the bad guy. So yeah, we're hearing daily these changes. So you know, we heard yesterday that the banks would be coming out with something big, and the something big is this 6 months. It's not a flat thing, so it's going to take forever and ever. I'm telling my clients right now, if you feel, or if you already know that you're not going to have a job, contact your bank now, because there's going to be a lineup.
Well, and I think there's some misunderstanding too, and you were really clear on pointing that out. People think that, oh, well, I can defer my mortgage payments for 6 months, and yes, you're deferring them for 6 months. It doesn't mean that you're, you know, suddenly they're going to go away. So it's good for people to really have an understanding about that, and look at all of the different packages that the government put out and the provinces are putting out, and figure out, you know, what's going to make the most sense for you and your family. So great. Oh, I think Lana just froze, or am I frozen? It's oh, might be me. There we go. We're back. All right, cool. It looks like Lana froze, so we'll wait for Lana to pop back. So just before we jump over to Cheri and Alice, so it's really interesting. Just for those of you who are attending, we have coverage tonight from coast to coast. So Darlene's way over in Moncton, and Alice is in Toronto, and the rest of us here are in Vancouver or Victoria. So it's really cool to have this coast to coast perspective on what's going on. You know, Darlene, we saw you in the snow on that video. So we're all over here in the sunshine. Alice, what's the weather like in Toronto?
It's above zero, but it's kind of rainy,
Yeah.
windy, sometimes sunny. It's not the greatest.
No, oh gosh, we're lucky we've got the sun, because that's definitely helping. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in that question box, and perhaps while they're coming in, we'll just keep on going. But if you're on the if you see the little menu, you should see a little question box there, and you can pop a question in there, and we'll see it, and we'll take some time to answer it for you. So please feel free.
Oh
and
my goodness.
Do as well. The other thing we can do as well is we can take some time to unmute some of you. So I think a couple people had their hand up. So let me just scroll through here. Oh, looks like took it down. Oh, and Len, I'm not sure if you're back. We can hear you, I think, now.
I think I'm back. Is it me that you're looking for?
You're back.
There you are. You're back.
A minute. I might disappear at any second.
It's magic. She's gone.
Yeah. Sorry, did somebody ask a question?
Not yet, but there's a technical, let's see, is there a technical way to ask my question by voice? Yes, let me just see, Inga, I can unmute you, so just give me a sec here to do that. Looks like, where did you go? I can't see your name on the list for some reason right now, so let's, while I'm doing that, Cheri, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Victoria and what your thoughts are, and I'll have a look at the questions while we're doing that.
Okay. Well, Victoria, we're just across the pond from Vancouver, so we have fewer cases of the virus and everything, but the effects, I think, are the same. We're having a lot of lockdown. You know, people are self-isolating, and then, you know, there's always the ones that aren't, that maybe should be. Run into a few of those. But how is that impacting things real estate wise? We're actually seeing tenants deny access into listings because they don't want strangers in. Or I've had a inspection where 2 days before the inspection, got a call from the tenant going, my son has a fever and a cough. We've called 811. Not a good idea. If you're coming, it's at your own risk. So of course the inspector denied to go in and do it, which then meant we had to extend the condition removal period to hopefully get him in after a couple of weeks. Maybe it might even be worse then, who knows. He called me today, him and one other inspector have called to let me know they're kind of shutting it down for 2 weeks and not exposing themselves to other people, because people are staying home where you don't know what's in other people's houses. So we've had that. We've had, you know, people wanting to defer listing, of course, because, you know, we got a bunch of older people here and they're not sure about people coming in, or how, you know, how careful they will be. I mean, we've been getting memos and memos about what to do when you're showing properties, what to do about open houses, and all that's good and well if people actually adhere to it, right? So some people just don't know. So definitely a slowdown in the marketplace in that regard. But, you know, like Tammy was saying, it doesn't mean that people are discounting horrifically. I've had one seller who were supposed to be closing on their property, the buyer's supposed to be closing on Friday, who now, after signing everything at the lawyer's office, is going, I want to back out because it's a revenue property, and, you know, somebody, they're going to, you know, be losing jobs and not be able to pay the rent, and I don't want to do this. Well, it's not quite how it works. However, there's going to be a big discussion later to figure out whether that is going to work for anybody. But the seller's already taken the stance. It's painted fresh now. It's tenanted, market rent. You know, worst case scenario, I take it. I keep it. But the interesting thing is that these buyers went to Coast Capital, and Coast Capital said they will not do a deferral program on the mortgage payments. The other thing I heard, which was also another credit union, Van City, who's had an amazing program for people who want to build houses and keep them as rentals. They've had a great program, and at 4 o'clock today, it got shut down. So they're not doing any construction loans unless they are principal residents. And the reason for this is that they are concerned, the institutions are concerned, they don't know how many people are going to default on mortgages, how much of this deferment, because who carries it but the institution. And we all know that banks and credit unions, financial institutions make a heck of a lot of money, and they're not going to be willing to give a lot of that up. So they're trying to position themselves. How much exposure do we really have if this turns bad, right? And so they're mitigating their risk by cutting out some of the stuff where they feel they can cut, or there's higher risk, and we'll save what we can do for, you know, where there's less risk, like principal residences and stuff like that. So that was interesting to hear today. I got on the phone with this guy right after he'd been on the conference call where they said, no, we're not doing this anymore. It's done, it's gone. So there's been a few things like that that will have an impact. What I am telling, you know, my clients and people is, you know, really, you need to ride this out. The sun will shine again, even though you feel you're under a cloud. If you're in a cash position, you are gold right now. So cash position to, number one, weather the storm and protect yourself. Number two is to participate in a lot of the opportunities that are out there, right? So those are the things you want to be looking for. What happened? Am I okay?
No,
you're good. You're good.
Okay, sorry.
Liza was scorning someone in the background who was.
Well, I know, and Darlene was laughing, so I thought that something just happened.
No, it was not you. It was Bill in the background. I'm sorry.
Yes, Bill.
Okay.
Bill heard the news and decided he better start praying. So
Yeah.
a shot of Bill in the background like this.
Bill's leg, yeah.
Not the right message. Get out of my frame. We're all
So
not
there
ending.
is,
You're slumped over, dying in your chair.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh. So
Yeah.
interesting. I think that the fact that Van City program got shut down is really something that our, you know, investors who are, you know, thinking, oh, this might be a great time to flip a property or do a rental or start my Airbnb business. Like these are the kinds of things that you kind of want to put the brakes on for right now. I think it would be, you know, we don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to be alarmist, but it's prudent, right? Like, let's make the right decision at the right time.
Yeah. I know lots of people with Airbnbs, both in the US and in Canada, that, you know, are just getting cancellation after cancellation. Like people can't travel.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So Airbnb is going to take a hit for sure.
Yeah.
But like Tammy had said, in the Vancouver area, in Victoria too, we have a shortage of inventory. And there are people who still need to move. They're being transferred, they're being whatever. I mean, that's still going to happen. It's going to be very interesting to see how the marketplace changes for how we're going to be dealing with showing properties and getting people into properties and make those deals happen. I had a conversation with one of our key lawyers here in town today, because they're already running down the road because there's a lot of pre-sales that are closing and everything else. If those buyers can't get out, or if they're in isolation and they can't close, what are you going to do? The land titles office has come back already today again and said, no, you have to physically be there and witness them signing the papers. So they're not going electronic. And if the lawyer is in isolation, if the client is in isolation, there's going to be difficulties in closing coming down the pipe, I think. And it's just going to be a matter of everybody has to be patient.
Yeah.
And we're just going to have to go with the flow. But if you've got cash, like, use it and be thankful. So the other thing I've been telling a lot of my clients is you can get a lot of doom and gloom when you're out there listening to all the radio shows or news shows or YouTube, whatever. Take time to be grateful for the position you are in right now, because it's likely that it's 10 times better than a lot of people out there. So, you know, if you've got some cash on hand, you're probably better off than 50% of the people out there. If you've got, you know, family around you and everybody's healthy, like, this is good news. Like, just be thankful for how things have happened and played out. And in 2 years from now, when we look back, we'll go, you know, it wasn't so bad. We survived.
And Cheri, I think, you know, those things for sure. Don't listen to the news seems to be, you know, my mom, I talked to my mom yesterday, and she's like, I just spent 2 hours this morning listening to the news. I'm like, why? You know, you could get all your updates in 20 minutes and then move on to something else.
Move on to something positive, right?
Yeah, move on to something positive. Watch a comedy show, play a game, call a friend. Yeah.
Get some videos on Facebook, puppy and kitty videos.
Yeah. Take a
That's
course.
you know, nobody has any trouble over Christmas staying at home and being with family for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Staying inside and doing all this sort of stuff. Well, it's just Christmas.
And
Christmas in March. I still got my tree up. I could just go hang out under my tree.
Send us a picture of that, Tammy.
Don't judge me. It's been a weird few months, but anyway.
Oh gosh, and I think, you know, there's opportunity here for learning. I think Cheri, you were talking about, you know, how do we show houses, right? I think virtually is going to be the way, and I think anybody who gets ahead of the game and gets into the houses with the virtual technology and starts showing houses virtually is going to be ahead of the game there. And for those of us who are, you know, in the other side, we're buying, or eventually there might be, I mean, my lawyer actually takes electronic signatures now on a lot of documents, which is, you know, it was unheard of a little while ago. So things are shifting, and it's, I think we're going to be in a time right now where we're going to see some massive shifts away from some of the things that organizations and government bodies were really hesitant to get out of because they were holding on to the old ways. And we can't do it now. So this might give us that kind of tipping point to shift over and make better use of some technology that the old Guards Club was kind of like, no, we don't want to do that. So interesting. There's a couple of questions, and I think before we jump into questions, Alice, we might as well hear from you, because then we've heard from all of us, and then we'll have some time for questions. And as I mentioned, if you got some questions, I can unmute you and you can jump in. So Alice, tell us what it's like in Toronto right now. What's it like in the big smoke?
Yeah, it's a little somber, I would say. I haven't been out in a few days. I came back from Peru, thankfully, about a month ago. Thank goodness, because they just shut down their border a couple of days ago, and I read an article about a Canadian couple from Ottawa who are not able to come back. So I'm very grateful, and I was also actually very ill when I was there. Not anything related to this virus, obviously, but I got medical care and I was home, and now I'm just, to what Cheri was saying, I'm feeling very grateful that I'm well, I'm home, I'm safe. And I also spent a lot of time actually out in the mountains with some of the Indigenous leaders out there. No heat, very little electricity, no Wi-Fi. I wore the same clothes. I didn't shower for days. So it's one of these experiences that I'm sharing with a lot of my friends and other clients that, like Cheri said, we're really lucky where we are. Yeah, things are a little bit scary and they're unstable. To Darlene's point, you know, we can get wrapped up in the fear and stuff, but when we go back to that place of gratitude, or we want to do, you know, high vibrational things that make us happy, or spend time with our families and people that matter to us, like, this is what really, really matters. And I was really lucky that I got that experience literally just like a month ago, and it's very fresh in my mind. And that's what I would like to share with people is, honestly, we have electricity, we have drinking water, we have Wi-Fi, we have food, like, we're way ahead. Yeah, so that's kind of the mindset piece that I have in terms of the market. And from an investor standpoint, I have spoken with a bunch of other investors. I actually was on a Facebook Live earlier this afternoon with a coach and a bunch of other investors. I think for the people especially who have a lot of properties in their portfolio, like income properties, there is a concern others have touched on here today about tenants being able to pay the rents, especially here in Ontario. I don't know how many of you know. I don't know if it applies to your province, but in Ontario, evictions are now not allowed. They're on hold, and we're not allowed to call the sheriff in, nothing. So that, it's gonna, and we talked to our property manager as well, because obviously we have several properties, and they're already sort of preparing us that, you know, they're gonna do their best. But you know, with the current climate, and especially if the government is already saying that you can't file the proper paperwork to take the steps for eviction if people don't pay their rent, it kind of gives an incentive for some, perhaps, maybe, you know, not to, or I'm not really sure. So we're just trying to be prepared, as prudent as we can for that. And so a lot of the talk this afternoon was about the importance of having this cash. Cheri mentioned like a cash kind of bubble or emergency fund. Especially, I mean, this is why investor education is so important, because if you're not cash flowing on your properties, not to mention like now if your tenants are not paying their rent, some investors can have very big exposure right now. So we had a lot of conversations about that. So I would be mindful of that if for those on this call. That's not to say that there are not opportunities. I would say I'm like, the market here is so big, like the GTA is such a big place. It's very micro, so I can't give like a grand overall picture, but you know, there's always potential deals to be had. I know just like less than a week ago in Hamilton, things were crazy. Multiple offers, like 50,000 over ask, like craziness. That was just a week ago. I think right now people are in a wait and see. I mean, with the financing, the mortgage rates dropping, I don't really know if that's going to help over here or not. I mean, it's so new, everything's so unprecedented. So we're very like wait and see. People that have offers in are trying to like push them through, like proceed with them. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, so I think overall, I think it was it Tammy that said, you know, be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. So yeah, that's not to say that there are not good opportunities again, but I think we're going to learn a lot out of this too, especially those that have made some mistakes or have sort of increased exposure, to kind of be a little bit more prudent and safe in the future. What else did I want to say? Yeah, I think that was about it. Again, I echo the optimism, like real estate's, people always need a place to live, no matter what. So, you know, however this goes, it may be a little stumbling block, it may be a little bit slower, but you know, we're human, we need a place to live. The market, like real estate, will always be needed, it will always exist. So that's why we like being in this business.
Exactly. There we go. Awesome. Well, I think we've heard from everybody, and it's great to be able to have a real coast to coast perspective about how people are feeling, and kind of take the temperature of what people are doing and how they're feeling, and get some input on all of the different interpretations about what's happening. It sounds, you know, the general consensus is a bit of caution and prudence. The word prudent came up quite a bit, so I think there's some good knowledge and good help there. So I'm just going to see if anybody's got any questions. And so for those of us who are panelists, I'm going to open up for questions. If you like, you can mute yourself until you have an opportunity to answer a question, but let's just see if there are any questions in the little old question box. And there's some comments here. And if anybody, as I say, if you want to raise your hand, or if you have a question, just let me know and I can unmute you, and you can jump in. And feel free to comment. Looks like there's a couple of comments here. Do we know how the government rental support for the tenant looks? So that's a question from Anja. Has anybody heard anything specific about that?
A little.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
mean, it's not that for tenants, right? They've opened up the EI, and
Right.
that has been the main thing that they've talked about. They've opened up EI claims, no wait time, none of this stuff. If you're isolated, if you've lost your job, all of those things, then EI will kick in immediately, and that is supposed to help you be able to cover your rent, right?
And so as an investment property owner, would it be wise to contact your tenants and help make sure they had a resource list so that we can help them be able to access everything that maybe there are people out there who don't realize that there are that you know, for example, there's lots of people who don't watch the news. Maybe there are people out there who don't realize there's been a government bailout package. Is that reasonable for us to be, you know, emailing our tenants and saying, hey, you know, just wanted to let you know that there's a resource package here. If you feel like you need to qualify or apply for any of this, here's a helpful list. Does that sound helpful?
Yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, I was going to say I was touching base on that particular topic today on a Facebook group I belong to, and it was kind of 50-50 split. People are like, well, I don't want everyone to know that they can bail on their rent.
Yeah.
Right. I personally was thinking, I manage 2 properties myself and the rest are property manager. So I was just going to call or send an email. How are you doing? Checking in during this difficult time. Let me know if there's anything I can do, and open the door that way. Not specifically talk about, can you pay rent? Can you not pay rent? Here's how you can not pay rent. Like I was maybe just going to open the door that way. But my 2 clients, because they're in both Vancouver properties, one's a lawyer, the other's in financial, and his girlfriend is an accountant. So they're, you know, high earners, professionals. Doesn't mean that they're not going to maybe lose their jobs. Who knows what the impact would be? But I just thought about maybe opening the door that way and just checking in email.
Yeah, that sounds great.
You know,
Yeah,
what does everybody else think? Cheri?
Yeah, I would take that route too. I don't want to go in sending out a letter and saying, oh, here's all the information of how you can apply to get your rent paid, because I don't want them to automatically think, oh, great, I don't have to pay rent.
Yeah.
I was on a site on Facebook today that somebody had posted some stuff, and one guy is off on a tangent about how tenants don't have to pay rent, period. And it's like, no. Nobody has said that. That's not there. It's not there.
Yeah,
It's
it could be misconstrued. Yeah,
and
I think.
I don't want to be seen as the landlord that's going to evict during this time either.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of clear about that. But by the same token, it's like, I also have bills to pay. So, you know, I want to make sure that something's going to happen there. And if these tenants do not pay rent, like, how do you get that back? You know, on a mortgage deferral, you still have to pay it back with the accrued interest.
Yeah.
Who's saying anything about tenants if they don't end up paying rent? How are you ever going to get that back?
There you go.
And there might be exceptions to that where it's going to happen, and that's just the way it is. But to open the door for that to happen, I think is wrong.
So here's another question from Inga. She's looking into buying an investment property within the next 6 months. None of us have a crystal ball on how the COVID-19 situation will unfold, but going into buying, is it the right time to lowball the offer? If so, by what percentage? So I think we kind of covered that. But do we want to just expand on that a little bit, or too soon? Yeah, Darlene says too soon.
No, but nobody's panicking yet. It's only been a week or two.
Yeah.
You need a good, strong, investment focused realtor who will guide you. Depends on the property, depends on the area. You got to look at comparable solds. And then what I do is I engage as much as possible with the listing agent when I'm representing my buyers, my investors, and really try to feel them out. Who is it? What's their motivation? Why are they selling? If they'll share, they don't have to share that. But I try to get that feel for, you know, what's their time frame? Are they motivated? What's their situation? How flexible are they on price? Of course, they're not going to say, oh, well, come in at this price. But really, it's amazing. Some realtors will give you more information than others. So it'll be on a case by case basis, but this certainly is not
the time.
it's not a low ball time.
No, not
No.
yet,
I
especially
also
when
wanted to
Inventory
add
is too low, and
those
we're
percent-
Yeah,
still having,
inventory is too low.
we're still having, as of yesterday, we're still having multiple offers on houses
wow, in Victoria.
in Victoria. So,
Yeah.
it's just not the environment. People aren't scared enough yet
Mhm.
from a seller's point of view. Or they don't have a real, I have to have it gone by X date, right?
Mhm, mhm,
I think it would have to be months from now,
mhm.
actually. It's going to take several months before people would start to be, and then the seller's not motivated anymore because they're too scared. They have security. See, it's a bizarre time because right now, if it's their primary residence, if they're an investor and they own the property and they don't have to sell, that's one situation. If it's owned by the primary resident who's living there, that's another situation. Maybe they're too scared to sell now. If you're buying from a developer, maybe you can get a deal now. The developer new pre-sales might slow down. Totally depends on what type of property you're looking at.
Mhm.
But I think it's
Do
going
we
to take.
think, do we think construction's going to slow down at all? Like, I mean, it's there's so much of a shortage. Darlene's saying no. I don't think that things on the East Coast are really going off right now, right? So it'd be a shame to see that economy that's finally like starting to go up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're thinking that things are still going to be, we still need to build seniors' homes, we still need to build rental buildings, all the other construction that's going on.
Yeah, and being on the East Coast with our prices so low, compared 1/10 of what you have, right? It's, it's still a great investment. So, it's more of an opportunity here, if anything else. I was just wondering, did anybody hear for the property taxes? I know it's all provincial, but was there any extension done for those anywhere?
Haven't heard anything yet. You guys heard anything yet?
No,
I was
but
actually just gonna write my counselor and the mayor to find out.
I did hear that small businesses maybe will be able to defer any taxes owed, income taxes owed until I think it was September or
August, I think.
September 1st, I think.
August.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a deferment available for your installments for small business income tax.
Yeah.
That's all I heard.
In regards to construction, just what's going on in Victoria here, or what the scuttlebutt is, the need for the housing and the need for the construction, like everything's moving ahead. What is unknown is when the laborers start to get affected. So widespread and so many people are going into isolation or quarantine, that will automatically slow things down because they just don't have the workforce.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But as far as need, or are people thinking of pulling back? No.
Right. All right, we are at 5 to 8. Does anybody have any last questions before we wrap up? I'm just running through the list. And Joan says my hair looks great. Thanks, Joan. I'm getting it all cut off on Friday. So. Well, I was going to get it cut in time to go to Mexico, but I'm not going to Mexico for a while. So. So yeah,
Liza, I just wanted to add to the question that came earlier about if they should lowball the offer. My advice would be always make sure to do your numbers. Right? Like that's almost irrelevant. Like if if you're not cash flowing at the price that they're asking or then it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So I would that would be I don't know if others agree or disagree, but yeah, just, like obviously it depends on your goals and objectives and why you want to get that property, of course. There's lots of different strategies, but always do your numbers. Always.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder, right? Doing your numbers based on the best and worst case scenario, and especially the worst case scenario. Yes. And that could be, what we're facing now, or who knows what else is coming down the pipe. So yes, not making an emotional decision, making a numbers decision. All right, so I'm just gonna scroll through once more. It looks like we are good with questions, and there's a couple of links that people have put in here, and I'll just go through those and see if we need to post them on the pages. Any last comments, ladies? Feel free to jump in, and then we'll wrap up for tonight.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Yes, that's a good one. And Dar, thank you for your videos. They're they're definitely seeing you all in green yesterday, and then in your Mickey Mouse gear out in the snow today. That definitely put a smile on my face. So thank you for being the cheer section.
Sometimes we have to do the stuff. We have 2 inches of snow overnight, so it's just totally appropriate with that,
Absolutely.
and the thing is in real estate is not to panic, right? You got weather the storm. The reason I mentioned the property taxes, we're the only province in Canada that if you have rentals, the property taxes are actually double. So will that affect people here? Yes, it will. And my neighbor, they had their house up for sale for a year basically, and it closed. The new people moved in 2 weeks ago. Are they ever thankful they moved to Nova Scotia? So things are still going to go out there. It's just get yourself educated. Don't panic is one of the things to look at. And, you're going to have to sit down and crunch your numbers and see where they go. And, we will come on top of this. There's going to be, a few bumps and bruises throughout, but, you really have to look at the big picture where it's all going to end up. This is unknown territories. And you're right, real estate, if people didn't have cash flow before, this is just another situation where how important, like Alice said, doing your numbers, right? And, Cheri, with the Airbnbs, a lot of it will be, stay local. Don't go to all these places. For us in Eastern Canada, we could just go to the Western coast. That just makes sense. You guys can come here. So, supporting local is going to be so important as we move forward to get people back up on. And if you're a leader in your area, out there doing. Cheri, they just keep calling you. They just want to sell houses.
She's a popular lady.
Cheri never stops. Well, I think that's all good stuff. And just for those of you who are on the webinar, we're going to have lots of guests over the next few weeks. So people like Dave Putinen, who's our tax strategist, who is a specialist here in Canada and has offices in the US. So I know there's probably investors who are questioning about what the heck's going on in the US as well. So we'll have Dave on. We'll probably, we'll bring lots of people on, so I won't go into all the details, but stand by. We'll be doing this. We're going to do this every Wednesday for the next, I think I've scheduled it until May, and we're going to change the time to 4 p.m. So that Darlene doesn't have to go to bed at midnight, because once again, it's probably tomorrow by the time we're finishing. When we do these at 7 p.m. PST, Darlene, who's a night owl anyway, she's up and we take her right into the next day. So happy Thursday, Darlene.
All right, I gotta get ready for more videos.
There you go. All right, and my crew is waving here.
Esther.
Yeah, I've got Bill and Esther. We just try to keep the what am I trying to say? The Wi-Fi for the rest of the house, because those of you who may not know, I live in a big co-house and there's seven people using the Wi-Fi. So
so you're hogging it right now.
Yeah. So Bill, it's really hard for Bill to be quiet for a whole hour. So
you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, he could do it.
Well, also too, if you see Michael, we hope he still makes it here in May.
Well, Michael's just canceled his tour, and I'm not sure if you've seen, but he's actually posted a Facebook video about staying home. So we'll probably see him over the fence in the next few weeks. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We hope that we helped you out a little bit, and have a great night. And if you've got some questions, of course, feel free to post them on the members page or the Facebook page, or via the website, or to info@WREN.club. And have a great night. Thank you, ladies. Lots of great information.
Bye,
And
everybody.
And if you've got questions for any of the ladies, you can, of course, reach them through me too. So there you go. All right. Bye.
Stay safe,
Bye.
healthy.
Be well, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive. Bye.